Hi, it's Hans at ahappierman.com. Today's topic is be easier on yourself. Well, I think a lot of men are way too hard on themselves, and that's part of and that when you're too hard on yourself, that's when you seem to struggle and suffer a bit more than you should, or at all, really. For example, when I was a younger man, I was very hard on myself. And I think young men, they tend to do this more, and that makes their young life very tough, very frustrating, they think everything should happen in a very short time frame. And I know I was very guilty of this as a young man. For example, when I was young, I I moved a lot. I moved around a lot. I went from my parents' house to college and back and forth all those times. That was like an enormous effort to move a lot. And then even after I got working and getting established, I tended to move a lot. In 1 year, I moved 3 times, right? And so there's that enormous effort in the moving and the lost money for all the moves. And now, as an older man, I'm tending to stay in one place longer. I've currently been in this place for over 4 years, and even though the rent does go up every year, the moving, I don't have the moving expenses. And I think you'll find if you can somehow get into one place and stay for a good long while without this excessive effort and money and time and all the extra things that go with moving, your life would be a lot easier. Another thing I did a lot as a young man is I weight trained a lot, multiple times a week. And even though I loved weight training, and even though I still love it, I can't recommend that you do it too often in a week. I think it's too much. Right, right now I'm trying to stick around 2 days a week, and that sometimes is even hard for an older man. Now, perhaps as a younger man, you can easily accommodate 2 times a week, maybe three, but I would give some serious consideration to not lifting days in a row. And I know as a young man, I did this, and I know I was always tired, I was always sore, I was always nursing injuries, and I never had any free time to just do nothing and have downtime. So you kind of have to be realistic in your extent of weight training, even though it's very good for you. I think as a young man, I thought the more I could train, the more I would look like the bodybuilders in the magazines, and I didn't know that they were all had enormous pharmaceutical help and had enormous genetic advantages that most men do not. And most men shouldn't use the pharmaceutical. That's up to you, of course, but you have to be aware that that's a thing, and you can't train the way they do, and with that extent of training and the volume and the number of days and the length of the workouts, and get the results they have without the pharmaceutical help. And I didn't know that. Truthfully, I didn't know it. I've only known about it now as an older man. So I would be a little less on yourself. Have realistic weight training expectations. Another thing I did as a young man is I did a lot of cardio. I would ride the stationary bike. I would do the rollers. I'd go for long walks. I'd go for long bike rides. I'd go for, sometimes I'd even run, take jogging. And in college, even I did these bounce around cardio classes. And I never really got in great cardio shape, even from all of that. All I got was my feet are getting destroyed, my knees aching, my getting too tired, so I couldn't enjoy, late nights out on the weekends. It impacted my studies in college. It impacted my free time at work, and I think the extent of cardio that I did, and that a lot of young men seem to do, and even older men, you have to be realistic in how much time should I spend doing cardio type things versus some weight training versus very gentle things or nothing at all, because you'll find uh, that the cardio will kind of tear up your body parts if you do them too much, and you don't want that. Right now, it can be fun, and maybe there's a time and a place for all of this. Maybe there's an event you want to train for. Maybe there's a certain look you're trying to get in your body, and the cardio would help. But just give that idea some thought. When I was a young man, I ate very little meat. Um, Growing up, obviously we had a big family, 3 kids and 2 parents, and uh, the meat wasn't. While we tended to have meat at every meal, it wasn't that much, right? It was expensive, and it's hard to provide for a lot of people as a family, and I didn't have it, and went to college, and I was able to, my first few years I was in the dorm, so I could tend to eat more meat then. But then when I went out of the dorms and lived on my own, the way to save a lot of money is to not have too much meat and more junk. And I continued that pattern through graduate school, and even as when I was working full time, had a good job and a good income, I still tended to minimal meat. And then when I got married, we would go sometimes many days without meat, going without that, trying to save money, and that didn't help me. That didn't help me at all. I find now a heavier meat diet seems to make me feel a lot better, helps my strength, helps my recovery, helps me feel good and look forward to my meals, and just an overall healthiness and vitality. So I think, to me, a heavier meat-based diet is more optimal. So in place of the meat, I still ate a lot, but it was more tending to the junk carbohydrates and junk food and what was cheap. A lot of rice, a lot of potatoes, a lot of bread, uh, some vegetables, and then other cheap foods, right? Cheap junk foods, and kind of got, I guess you'd call me a junk food junkie in those days, and I'm trying to recover, but I still love it. It's still embedded in my nature to go for that kind of stuff, but it isn't good for me, and I'm working away from it. Uh, but yeah, certainly candy bars, donuts, cakes, pies, ice cream, cookies, crackers, anything like that. Things in, let's say, the side dishes that come in a box or a bag. Yeah, all of that, and I did that extensively as a young man, and that was hard on me. I should not have done that. You shouldn't do that either. You tend to the outside aisles of your grocery store, and I think you'll be a lot better off. In addition to all that cheap junk food, I mostly drank high carbohydrate beer in those days. I loved to go out with my friends, and we'd drink beer and have fun and party and meet girls and go dancing, and we had a blast. Uh, but looking back, it might have been better to go with a light beer and maybe a alcohol with a mix that was carbohydrate free, or have some waters interspersed with all of that. So it would be tough. It's going to be tough to lose a lot of weight if you drink a lot of high carbohydrate beer. I had poor sleep. I didn't get a good bed until I was married, and then even after, when I left my wife, I had a terrible bed, and I finally got a good one a number of years ago, and that makes a world of difference. You have to have a good bed, and you're going to have to spend a ton of money on it, and that's when you don't have a lot of money. You tend to not spend it on the most important things, and the most important thing is a good bed. But so I had very poor sleep in those days. I can clearly would go out, stay out late on a Friday, Saturday night to bar time, 2, 3 in the morning, and the bed would wake me up at 6 or 7 in the morning. Right? It wasn't good enough to sleep long enough to recover and feel good. Or after a very heavy workout, the bed where I maybe needed 10 or 12 hours of sleep after a very heavy workout, I couldn't, right? I would pop out of bed early in the morning and my aching, but the bed was not sufficient. You need a great bed, and it's very hard on you if you don't have a good bed. I had very high expectations that everything would go exactly how I wanted it, rather than letting things flow to me. So it'd be, let's say, regarding meeting ladies, there was always the expectation that every time I go out, I'm going to meet a lady and we're going to hit it off and we're going to have a great time. Well, that might be a high expectation that's difficult. I think my more model now is to go out and have a very nice time, a very fun evening, and if I meet a lady, fine. If I don't, fine. I kind of lowered the expectations with that, and makes my life much, much more relaxed, and I'm not so hard on myself regarding that. The other thing is money. How much money, so sometimes men want to save a huge amount of their income for the future you, and you're not using the money you're earning today to enjoy your life today. And I think that is being too hard on yourself. Yes, there would be a certain percentage, a modest percentage of your income should be diverted to savings and investments, but a modest amount that you can still enjoy your life today. The other thing with high expectations is starting a job and expecting to rise up quickly in your organization. You have to understand that the other people in the organization, they're all thinking the same thing. There's an enormous competition, and a lot of them have been there a long time, and the natural flow of things is over the years to rise quickly. Now, certainly some of you may be superstars and will rise quickly, but let's just say the normal pace is to rise at a normal pace. And then I think a lot of the reason we want to rise quickly is to make more money so we can buy a better lifestyle. Well, your lifestyle will come as you rise, and just enjoy where you're at now and stay living within the means you have now, that you don't necessarily have to rise that fast. So I know I was guilty of this too. I thought everything would go quickly, and it takes time. It takes time, and you're better off being more patient with this. Something that kind of I struggled with and was very hard on myself was I always had junk cars until recent times, and that made my life very difficult, very stressful. They're breaking down, flat tires, multiple repair expenses, unexpected, just a discomfort in the driving them. A long drive was just a huge burden, whereas now with good cars, a long drive is a delight. And if you're going to spend a lot of money on something, I would spend a lot of money on your car so you can enjoy your life to the fullest, and you don't have that frustration of being hard on yourself with wondering if this thing is going to get me from A to B. Am I going to have to repair it all the time unexpectedly? Junk cars kind of ruin your life. Another way to be hard on yourself is being a long way from things. Let's say moving a long way from your hometown or family when you love your family and want to be near them, or love your hometown. Maybe there's a way to live within a lesser distance from that hometown. And of course, this was kind of my life. I lived a long way in college. I was a long way, and I had a junk car, so going back and forth to my hometown was a real nightmare trip. And then when I got my full-time job, it was even farther, and it was just a very difficult to get back and forth the way I wanted to, and doing the things I'd like to do, and it was just a long way. Another thing I would normally do was live in a cheaper location farther away from where the action was, and then when you're a long way from where the action is, you either spend a lot of time getting there or you don't go. So I would look carefully, choose carefully where you live, so you live close to the things you like to do the most, so those things are easy to do logistically. Uh, Getting close to the end here. Uh, I think what a lot of men have is they have the weight of the world on their shoulders, and they feel bad for the way the world is, and wish they could do more for it. And yes, we a lot of men, we get into the news, we get into the politics, we get into what the government's up to, we get into the what people are into, and we wish we could influence things to make them better on the worldwide societal scale, and we feel guilty for the things that happened in the past. And I think those feelings are universal amongst men, and that's why a lot of us have a hard time being happy. We have a hard time being content. We have a hard time of focusing on our own lives and our immediate circle, where and I think the more you can take that weight of the world off of your shoulders, the more you can avoid the guilty feelings from things that happened in the past, the better your life is going to be now and into the future, and the more you're going to influence your circle of people around you positively, and that ripple effect is going to be massive. So give that idea some thought, all for now.